Hey everybody, it's game time ahead of Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals tonight. That happens north of the border. Good to see you there. Here from our Atlanta studio, I'm Matt Weiner, Greg Anthony right over there. The Jet, Jason Terry. The Raptors made a series of things in Game 3, surviving a 2-overtime slog of a game to avoid an 0-3 hole. Obviously, a big part of their success in Game 3 was limiting Giannis to just 12 points on 5 of 16 shooting. Is that repeatable tonight?
Definitely repeatable. They have to continue to do a great job of building a wall, right? Toronto did a great job of building a wall, not only in transition, but also in the half court. Zoning up off of Bledsoe, who has been inconsistent from outside in long range in this series, and then loading up on Giannis when he did not have the ball. I think that's very important, continue to dominate that aspect of the game.
Well, I would go a step further. I'm not sure Bledsoe's been inconsistent. He's been consistent, just not very good in this series shooting the basketball so far.
Yeah, and listen, it wasn't just Giannis. Their starting five 19 to 69 from the field. They did not shoot it well. They did not shoot threes well. And I thought their inactivity on offense really hurt them and Giannis. Their inability to really move eyes. And by that, I mean they allowed Toronto to load their defense to Giannis. They didn't really do a lot of cutting. They didn't do anything in terms of moving feet, moving eyes of Toronto. I don't care how great you are. When 5 sets of eyes are able to load on you and really dictate what you're going to do, makes it very hard for you to get opportunities. And you can just see they got 4 guys standing around waiting to see what Giannis was going to do. They're going to have much better motion. And Toronto also was really good with their defensive transition. So I thought if you're Milwaukee, you've got to play faster. You've got to get guys on the move. Again, same thing. It's like, it's like Groundhog Day. They basically, there was just no motion, no movement, no ball movement. Let's just throw it to Giannis and get out of the way. At this level, that's not going to get it done against the teams that are left playing. When you talk about Toronto, Golden State, they've got to do a better job. Here he had an opportunity to make a play, but Marcus Gasol, great strip down there on that play. And so they're going to have to figure out ways to get him better looks, maybe some post-ups, running sets, which you don't see a lot of in the NBA, but they're going to have to do some things differently. They can't allow, especially on the road, Toronto to continue to lock and load defensively.
You see just 10 points in the paint after leading the league in the regular season in that category. And remember Game 1 of the Celtics series when Boston was so effective at doing some of the same things, walling off Giannis Antetokounmpo, and you thought, oh, this is interesting. Celtics may have something going here, and then they lost 4 straight. Milwaukee sort of flipped the script on them there. Offensively, you mentioned it wasn't just Giannis who struggled. Kawhi Leonard single-handedly outscored Giannis, Chris Middleton, and Eric Bledsoe in Game 3. And the difference between the two teams really is that the Bucks were in this game largely because of their bench, 2 20-point scorers from their bench. Toronto doesn't seem to have that at their disposal, and Kawhi, it appears, is going to have to be a force of nature if Toronto is going to win this series.
Well, Kawhi will continue his dominance. He's been so throughout the playoffs. He's averaging over 30 points a game. In 5 consecutive games, he scored 30-plus points. He's on a mission. He knows he carries a tremendous burden of scoring and shutting down Giannis, but he's capable. He is the best two-way player in our game, and he's led this Toronto Raptors team the entire postseason.
Yeah, and listen, I think that Kawhi Leonard's been the most consistent performer in the postseason, bar none, from Game 1 to this game. Mm-hmm. He literally has not had an off game in the postseason. And to your point, he's got to play well. But I think they're getting other guys going. Siakam, who was abysmal in Game 7, he's starting to bounce back. Lowry's had a 30-point game in this series. I thought Marcus Gasol played his best game of the postseason in Game 3 as well. And then you had the huge impact from Norman Powell. So they don't necessarily have as much depth, but they do have other areas where those guys can impact it. Like Serge Ibaka can still be a deterrent defensively. He can still have those areas of the game where he can impact it, maybe not scoring it. It would be nice for them to get Fred VanVleet going. Yeah. They need something positive. He needs something positive because if they get anything out of him, then they can go to their small ball lineup with he and Lowry in the backcourt together. But, every game takes on its own personality. And so, just because something happened in the last game doesn't mean it's going to play a role in this one. So I wouldn't be as concerned about that. it's always nice to know that our main guy, our main cog, is going to be there, which is going to create opportunities for everybody else.
And when it's not flowing offensively, he's creating his own opportunities because he's been so good defensively as well. There's not that many things that I think the NHL does better than the NBA. By the way, go Blues. The St. Louis Blues from my hometown can win their way into the Stanley Cup Finals tonight. But this is one of them. They have a playoff MVP as opposed to just a finals MVP, which the NBA does. I've always thought there should be a playoff MVP over the course of the 4 rounds. If such an award existed, who would be your playoff MVP at this point?
Damn it, Matt Weiner, I just told you it was Kawhi Leonard. I don't think there's – and listen, you're going to get some people that say Steph Curry, and he has been great. But, you know, he's playing –
by the way.
Even though he didn't play in the last series, he's playing with a guy's averaging 34 points in the playoffs.
Yeah.
You know, so he's gotten a little bit of help. Giannis has been terrific as well because, like Kawhi, he is a dominant force on both ends of the floor. But to me, there just has not – for a team that hadn't had much impact off their bench, they haven't had a consistent second option the entire postseason.
Right.
For this guy to have this team where he has them with what he's done, to me, it's not even really close in terms of the overall impact. KD would probably be on this list had he played, but you can't get on the list if you miss an entire series.
You miss a whole round of the playoffs.
So, I can't have him on there.
Argument for Steph would be?
Well, I cannot disagree with you with Kawhi. Obviously, his impact, without him on that team, they're not even in the playoff picture. But Steph Curry's impact since Game 6, taking over in Houston, going scoreless in the first half, dominating in the second half against Houston, winning that series, and then his imprint on the series against Portland was just pure dominance. 27 points per game throughout the playoffs, 5 assists, 6 rebounds. And in that last series, Steph Curry averaged over 35 points a game. He was automatic.
Are you with me on the award, though?
Yeah, I like that idea.
I like that idea.
You know what? I'm going to give Adam a call, and I'm going to text him tonight.
Let's make this happen.
In all seriousness, though, I think it is a great idea. You know, I would say the only issue, though, is generally speaking, and we just had this conversation in our pre-production meeting, how are you going to get the MVP if you don't get to the finals?
Right.
Well, and you might never.
You know what I'm saying? So generally, because the way I look at it, if you win the finals MVP, you probably have been the MVP of the postseason because you got your team to the finals.
But there have been exceptions over the years.
Andre
Iguodala probably wouldn't have been the playoff MVP.
True.
There's
and you could do
2.
both also. You could have a finals MVP and a playoffs MVP.
Yeah, like GA, to your point, remember on the losing team a couple years ago, LeBron, dominant performance in the finals, but they lose.
Jerry West won that award once in a losing
There you
effort,
go.
won MVP of the NBA Finals. Anyway, Pascal Siakam, 25 points in Game 3. Speaking of the other folks who need to contribute offensively, obviously he's the number one candidate for them. He only got off 9 shots in Game 2. What do they need from him tonight?
Well, he has to continue to maintain his aggressiveness. For me, it's when he rebounds the ball in transition, attacking first. The mindset is, I am going to put pressure on the Milwaukee defense, get in the paint, create offense for myself first. And when he plays with that sort of assertiveness, it opens up his perimeter game. We know he's a much improved three-point shooter, especially from the corners. He's very efficient. And when he gets his confidence going, it's because he's been getting out in transition, getting steals, and then creating opportunities for himself in that capacity.
He showed me something, believe it or not. I think it was Game 2. Where he actually, in Game 1, he took 20 shots.
Yeah.
Now, he only shot 6 of 20, but as Jason will attest to, when you take 20 and you don't shoot well, that means you're engaged.
Yes.
You know, because a lot of times with complementary players, if they don't hit one of those first 5 or 6, they may not take another shot. They'll start looking to do other things. But he took the onus to be aggressive, to take shots, and he understood that. And he followed that up in Game 3 with his best game of this series. And so, but to me, he's an energy and activity guy. When he is active, he's going to have an impact on the game, you know, because of the athleticism and the improved skill set offensively. And I tell you what, it takes a lot of pressure off of Kawhi to have another guy out there. And remember also, he's going to have a lot of responsibility in guarding Giannis.
Absolutely,
you know,
yeah.
So for him to be able to do both, it takes a lot of energy to have to defend that man and then still be counted on to score offensively. But he's shown the last couple games that he has the fortitude to do it. And if Toronto wants a chance to win this series, and more importantly to win tonight, he's going to have to play well.
It's a good point about passing up shots, though, because we've seen some of that tentativeness from Kawhi's teammates over the course of the playoffs so far. Can't have it if they're going to tie up this series tonight in Game 4. The Western Conference champs await the Raptors or Bucks in the finals. We'll get into Golden State's 5th straight finals appearance next. The Warriors pulled off an unprecedented double playoff triple-double in their Game 4 elimination of the Blazers, with Steph Curry and Draymond Green becoming the first teammates to each record triple-doubles in a playoff game. That was surprising to me. Our Dennis Scott covered the Western Conference Finals, short as it was, and caught up with Dre.
Draymond, if I'd have told you that you were going to be on the team to go to 5 straight finals when you come to the NBA, it would have went through your mind.
I wouldn't have believed you. When I came into the NBA, we weren't the team we are today. We was coming off a 23-win season. No one really cared about us, but we put the work in. We've really built this thing up, and we've had some special times.
Rest versus rust. How do you keep your mind fresh and your body fresh waiting to see who you play with Toronto or Milwaukee?
Honestly, it's going to be easy. We've been fighting for, 5 weeks now, and the longest break we've had was 3 days. So for us, and the injuries that we have, we need KD back, we need DeMarcus, we need Andre. 10 days off, we know how to stay sharp with our skill set, but it hopefully feel like a brand new team.
Toronto, Milwaukee, they're still playing. Do you feel which team match up better against you guys?
Both teams are very good teams, so I don't really care about who matches up better. Whoever's there, that's who we face, and we're trying to go get a win. It'd be great if we could get our 3 guys back healthy. That'll make things a lot. I wouldn't necessarily say easy, because no finals is easy, but it'll make it a lot better for us. Nonetheless, no matter who's out there, we got to continue to do what we do.
Dre was a driving force. Steph was brilliant against the Blazers, averaging 36.5 points, 8 boards, 7 assists a game, shooting nearly 43% from three-point range. And in fact, his 146 total points were the most ever in a 4-game playoff sweep. And despite trailing for 18 more minutes than they led over the course of the 4 games, the Dubs made quick work of Portland to reach a 5th straight NBA Finals, and Kevin Durant didn't play a second of the series. Assuming KD is ready for Game 1 of the Eastern Conference, Game 1 of the Finals in an Eastern Conference city TBA on the 30th, how much do you expect to change for Golden State with both those offensive stars on the floor?
I don't think a ton. I hear all this narrative about how, they move it so much better and they do all these things when he's not out there.
They did pass more.
I don't think their assists prove that to be the case.
Secondary assists do. The number of passes per game do.
All I know is this. With KD, they are 2-0 in the NBA Finals.
Yes.
Without him, they are 1-1.
Fair point.
Do the math.
Oh, I just think most people aren't arguing they're better.
They are better. I think, listen, Portland was a team that was ill-equipped to play them. And Portland put up a hell of a fight. Like 3 of those games, Portland had great chances of winning. Steph was brilliant. Yep. Draymond was brilliant. Yep. What they did was incredible. But from a game planning standpoint, they are much more difficult to deal with when Durant is on the floor. They just are.
Sure.
Not just his ability to score, his presence. It creates more opportunities for those other guys. Steph was averaging 27 a game with him. Mm-hmm. It's not like Steph, 23, because it went up to about 27 without him. But I just think they become much more difficult to defend when he's on the floor. And he's a plus defender as well, defensively. He gets deflections, he's going to block shots, he can rebound the basketball. I just think they're more dynamic when he's on the floor and gives them a better chance to be 3-time champs if he's playing.
Yeah. Well, to me, it was the mentality of Draymond Green, Steph, and Clay. They knew without KD, the onus was on them. Mm-hmm. With KD, they can kind of lay back a little bit and allow him to do what he does best, and that's score the basketball. But when KD is out of the lineup, Draymond goes back to his natural position. Right. He rebounds, he facilitates, and his motor in that series was infectious. No one on the Trailblazers team could match it, and he dominated on both ends of the floor, which created opportunities for Steph and Clay that sometimes they just don't get when KD's out there on the floor. But, hey, if they're not getting it, KD is, and that's a great option as well.
There are opportunities for a lot of different guys in this series. Steve Kerr has used 8 different starting lineups already in the postseason. On the way here, the Don, longtime head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves, and now Ryan following in his footsteps there. Those are thoughts from some of the 6 new head coaches now on the job, including Jim Boylan of the Bulls and Saunders, who both lost the interim tags on their titles. Still one vacancy left to fill in Memphis. Guys, looking at the rosters these coaches inherit in the summer ahead, who among these new coaches has the toughest job moving forward?
I'm going to say...
Jet deferred to you.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with... Man, it's a tough call for me. I think I'm going to say Cleveland. I think Beilein's got the toughest job.
Because of his transition from college or because of the roster that exists there?
Is that like a multiple?
Or both?
I was going to say all of the above.
Okay.
All of the above. I really do think because the transition is always going to be a challenge because you go from that father-son dynamic to more of a peer-to-peer dynamic in the professional game. And secondly, the reality is, and this is sometimes hard for really successful collegiate coaches, you don't have as much impact on winning.
Sure.
At the end of the day. And you can't go out and recruit the guy to help you win. You know, that is all up to the front office. So
right.
I would say he's going to have the biggest challenge because that roster is not the best. A lot of those situations have really good young talent. Colin Saxon had a terrific year, but I don't think they have the depth, nor are they going to have the ability to go out in free agency and acquire the kind of talent to help expedite the process.
Yeah, I'm looking at Sacramento as well as a team that had more expectation than they would ordinarily have. Bringing in Luke Walton, obviously he's accomplished, winning this championship as assistant in Golden State. The year they had this year and having to expound upon that, they got talent. They add a couple veterans to that roster, and now expectations are to make the playoffs in a tough Western Conference.
Right.
So that's going to be tough. But I also agree with Greg. I mean, Cleveland, the way their roster is constructed, they're just so young, and you're kind of setting Beeline up here, but expectations aren't as high. So he can go through this year, and as long as they're playing well, they're competitive, then I think that's a win for Cleveland.
Kings have plenty of talent, but they're in the West still, and there are a lot of teams ahead of them in the pecking order at this point. Speaking of the Kings, the all-rookie teams are out, and for just the second time ever, the top 5 picks in the draft made first-team all-rookie. Rookie of the Year favorites Luka Doncic and Trae Young led the voting. Both were unanimous choices ahead of DeAndre Ayton, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Marvin Bagley III. There's your king. Second team included a pair of Clippers teammates, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Landry Shamet, as well on the aforementioned Colin Sexton, the Knicks' Mitchell Robinson, Atlanta's Kevin Huerter. The last and only time the first team was the top 5 picks in the draft, the players were Hakeem Olajuwon, Sam Bowie, Michael Jordan, Sam Perkins, and Charles Barkley. 3 of those guys, of course, are in the Hall of Fame. Injuries limited Sam Bowie. Sam Perkins played 17 years.
Had a great
Big
Do
smooth.
you see players from this class who can have that kind of career?
Oh, well, Colin Sexton to me stands out on that second team.
Yeah.
I like him. He's a dynamic point guard. He can facilitate, but he can definitely score as well. So I look at him. But Luka Doncic, I mean, he's a pro of all pros. He plays well beyond his years. His demeanor, his presence on the floor, his ability to score in all 3 areas in the game, but make his teammates better. To me, this is a guy that could be all NBA multiple years.
I would say there's 2 or 3 guys on that first team that have a chance. They've started the trajectory to be Hall of Famers.
Right.
Doncic, I think, is going to be a Hall of Famer. And you know what? He's got the easiest path because you got to factor in what he's already accomplished
Right.
in the European leagues, right? I think Trae Young has set himself up for an opportunity if he continues on his path. But when you start talking about Bagley and Ayton, and then also Jaren Jackson Jr., those 3 guys are going to have a chance to be perennial all-stars. You know, that is the future. Those guys are legit talents. They proved it their rookie year, and I expect them all to improve in their second season.
Way to put the pressure on.
Yeah, man.
I like you. Got
Listen,
guys
you
that go to the
want
Hall of Fame already. They're 20 years old. GA's got them in the Hall of Fame.
The most Hall of Famers, what puts them in there is they start with tremendous impact from day one.
Really good from the get-go.
They don't need 4 or 5 years to figure it out.
There aren't a lot of late-blooming Hall of Famers.
No.
All right, much more to come. Stick with us. More Game Time on the way.